Our finding the part video. In this video we're going to talk about percents, wholes, and parts, and in this case we're going to give you the percent and the whole amount, and then you're going to use that information to try to find the part. Okay, we can use proportions or we can use equations to solve these amounts, so I'll be showing you how to do both in these examples, and you could pick the way that you feel more comfortable with. Okay, I'm going to move on to example 1. In example 1, we're going to be using equations to find the part. In an equation, the basic equation that we're going to write is just going to be percent times the whole amount, which we always associate with the word of, equals our part, which we associate with the word is in word problems. Okay? And that's what we're going to use. Now, a couple other things that are kind of important to know. Of does mean multiplication in math, so this word where it says what is 25% of 156, that does stand for multiplication. And is in math represents an equal sign. So those are things that you can use to know to help you as you're working through these. Okay, so in this example, what is 25% of 156? We're just going to use our equation, percent times the whole amount equals the part. Remember, the whole amount is the of or our multiplication. So I'm going to take 25%, which when I use that in math, I have to use it as a decimal. Remember, as a decimal, okay, that's 25 over 100, percents out of 100, so it's 0.25. So that's what we're going to use. So in this example, I would just do 0.25 times 156. So that's going to be my work that I'm going to use. When I multiply that in my calculator, I get 39, and that is my answer. So my part is 39. Okay, so all you have to do is multiply that percent times that whole amount. In example, or in problem 2 here, Jan got 80% on her 25 question test. How many did she get correct? So I'm going to take 80% as a decimal. So remember, 80% is 80 out of 100. So that's 0.80. That's 80 out of 100. And I'm just going to take that number and I'm going to multiply it by 25. 0.8 times 25 would equal 20. So my answer is how many questions? She got 20 questions correct. And that's how you're going to use an equation to find your answer. Okay? If you need to rewatch anything or copy anything down, go ahead. I'm going to move on to the next example. In example 2, we're going to be using proportions. Now, proportions, we're going to be using the kind of the formula of percent is out of 100. So we're going to do percent out of 100 equals our part out of our whole amount. Now remember, part is associated with is, your whole amount is associated with of. Now when we talk about our proportions, remember we have to keep things consistent, and that is why we have percent going into 100, or into our part. Okay, percent is across from our part because they both represent a portion of it. The 100 represents everything, the whole amount, and that's why it's across from the whole amount there. Okay, so I'm going to use my proportions ratios there to get my answer. So percent over 100, so I'm going to take the percent 30 over 100. Notice in this example I do not have to convert it. That's what the over the 100 does. So I do 30 over 100 equals of 50. So it's going to be x, or I can use any variable I want, over 50. Now I'm going to solve that proportion. So remember, when I solve, I multiply the cross numbers. So 30 times 50 equals 1500. And then I divide it by the number that's makes a cross with the variable. 1500 divided by 100 equals 15. So my answer is 15. Okay. In example 4 here, studies show that 4% of students like bologna. If 50% of students were surveyed, how many like bologna? Well, I'd take my percent over 100. So 4 over 100 equals, the 50 students represents all the students that were surveyed, so that's the total amount, the whole amount. Okay, and I'm going to put my variable over 50, and then I solve my proportion. I do 4 times 50 is 200. I do 200 divided by 100, and I get 2. So how many students liked it? 2 students. Okay. Now, some of you in solving these proportions may have noticed that, hey, couldn't I have just done 100 divided by 2 to get 50? Yeah, 30 divided by 2 is my 15. Again, 100 divided by 2 is 50 over here. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So if that number goes into the number, you can use those equivalent ratios to help you find your answers. Okay? If you need to watch anything again, go ahead. Otherwise, have a great night.